Visiting with us. You are a special guest. I'm glad for everybody here, but I'm always especially glad that if we have visitors, that we can have the opportunity to hopefully make a good influence upon you in your service and devotion to God. If you don't have one of the outlines that are on the shelf in the foyer, if I talk slow, somebody will magically appear maybe. And I saw him just cross the door. So if you need it, you raise your hand and he will be more than happy to get it to you. In the book of Luke, the 10th chapter, there's an account that's familiar to most of us, I believe. Beginning in verse 38, it says, "It came to pass as they went that he entered into a certain village." The he there is Jesus. "And a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. She had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was cumbered about, much serving, and came to him and said, Lord, dost thou not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me. Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary has chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her." You know, you look at that, and of course the idea of cumbered about, that means she was distracted. You think about that account. Here is Jesus, whom they had heard so much about, no doubt, and he's in the house, and she's distracted from doing as did her sister, and sit and listen to him. So many times in life we find people, they forget to focus. But he emphasizes here that there was this one that chose the good part. That good part, of course, was following Jesus, looking and listening unto him. And he said, this will never be taken away from her. And you think about that, and it emphasizes not only the value of serving God, but whenever he said, you know, you're cumbered about, you're distracted by these things out here, the implication is they're going to be taken away. In other words, we live in this life, we live in the world, but we're not of the world. We have to do certain things, but we need to choose the good part. Now you think about choosing the good part and the influence we can have on others. And today's a special day. It encourages us in this nation to look at mothers. You look in the Bible and there are about 290 times that the word mother is used. God has a lot to say about them. But whenever you think about a godly mother or a godly woman, godly man, doesn't matter who you are, but as we look today and we consider mothers or those women who they have the same influence as mothers, you know, my children and grandchildren are blessed to have their physical mothers, but in a sense, the Bible class teachers that start with them at a young age, those women who are just examples here, they are motherly. And so today I hope that we will consider not only those who are mothers by virtue of having children, but those who are spiritual mothers. God gives us an instruction to honor those women as mothers. But you look and you find that whenever you think about that life they live, I want to consider a few things, and there are several things I've got in the text or in the outline there. There are 4 different things that I think that these are typical of those women who choose the good part. And it's never going to be taken away. As a matter of fact, I'd say further than that, it's going to live on from you in the lives of others that you influence and impact. The first one I would consider was that these who think of the moms, they are as Marys, and those who chose the good part, are those that choose the good part of love. Now, love is that thing that is central to everything about a child of God's life. Whenever Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment, the answer was given, love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and your neighbor as yourself. Love is that Jesus set forth. The many words used as love in the world, but he set forth that word agape, and it's that love that seeks the best for another. And you think about the Marys, the mothers, the women who look and they not only have that love, but they communicate it in their actions and even in their teachings. In the book of Titus, the 2nd chapter, verse 3 and 4, he says, aged women, likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not giving much wine, teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober. Love your husbands. Love their children. You think about a woman who has the proper love in her home, and I can just about assure you that there is another woman, hopefully it was her mother, but it is the influence. You know, Lana was talking about in class a sad time in her life. She was with her son and didn't have a husband to help her at that time, one of the tragedies in my life. But she went and she began to serve the Lord. And she sought out others who could help her. And I'm sure that she got, by example and probably word, things that would help her understand what it was to raise a child in the proper way, to be a proper wife, even to somebody who wasn't a proper husband. But you look and you see that this is the type of thing that is chosen. Love is a choice. We talk about love, and you think about, I fell in love with Lana. Lana fell in love with me. But I guarantee you, about 55 or, I'm getting in trouble now, however many years ago it was, I didn't really understand what love was. Well, I loved her. But the love that I grew to have, and hopefully love she grew to have, is so special. And that's the love that God set forth, and that's the love that a mother shows. I remember growing up, I saw that love in my mother. I saw it towards my father from her and towards the children from her. Likewise saw it in my father. But you look at that, and the mother's love is so amazing. The Apostle Paul said in the book of Romans, the 12th chapter and verse 8, he says, owe no man anything. By the way, that doesn't mean you can't borrow money. Here's a debt that can never be paid off. Don't get into debt with anything that you can't pay off, except to love one another. He that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. In other words, that love keeps on going in every relationship. But the foundation, whenever God created this earth, he said, first of all, it's not good that man can be alone. In other words, we need a family unit in our society. And that love that is there is such that it permeates everything about. And so that love that seeks the good is that love that binds a home, that makes a home, that makes a family of God even. That women are the center of this is so amazing. That love is further described in Romans the 13th chapter and verse 10, and this emphasizes what I said a moment ago. The Greek word there is different from the others. It's agape. You've probably heard that many times in various things. But what that love is, he says, love worketh no ill, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. But that idea of worketh no ill, another way to phrase it, the definition is, this love seeks the best. Your mama seek your best? Mine did. And at the sacrifice of herself. My wife sought the best in our family at the sacrifice of herself. The cost of giving this love is something that those who have it willingly give. It's the type of love that Jesus had for us, that he gave himself. And we're talking about the mothers who choose the good part, the women who choose the good part. They have this love. They choose that good part. It's something that is instilled in us because of who we have become. And then secondly, these women, they choose the good part of training children in the way they should go. Now you think about in the book of Proverbs, the 22nd chapter and verse 6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he'll not depart from it. A lot of people have this false idea that means, if my children do something wrong, it's got to be my fault. I failed somewhere. Well, we know that's not true. All you got to do is read the book of Genesis, and you think Adam and Eve, they were the first ones that did wrong. I always call Adam the first worst husband. Whose fault was it? Was it God's? He trained them. No, it was theirs. But what you look at, and Albert Barnes, he was a commentator, and I don't put a whole lot of stock in commentators all the time, but he said some things. He said to train is to initiate and to educate, but in the way he should go, that is according to the tenor of his way, the path especially belonging to and fitted for that child's individual character. The proverb enjoins the closest possible study of each child's temperament and adaptation to his way of life to that. Now let me ask you something. You think about that, and that's a responsibility that I have. To my children, I had a responsibility to train them in the way they should go. God even singled out the men in Ephesians 6 that they are to bring them up in nurture and admonition of the Lord. He knew that us men needed an extra kick to get going. But the reality is, if you want to know about a child and their inner self, well, you can ask the dad, and he'll tell you some things. But it's going to get down to, you look to what the mother says. I mean, mother has an attachment, a bond, an examination, a knowledge of a child that is so amazing. And she looks to this child and she knows. You know, my wife would tell me, you know, this is the way I needed to do certain things in relationship to our children that I didn't understand, but I took her word for it because she knew them better. Well, mothers are suited for that, training them up in the way they should go. In the book of Proverbs, the 4th chapter and verse 3, the writer says, I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. I think that emphasizes again, he wasn't disparaging his father, but he was talking about the relationship that was closer with his mother, how she knew him, how that tenderness and beloved was there. He had 3 brothers by Bathsheba, according to 1 Chronicles chapter 3 and verse 5, but he was singled out. You know, in our family, there wasn't any, you know, special one. You know, everybody, it all depends on what's going on, that my kids would say, well, I'm the favorite. And there wasn't a favorite. Wink, wink, Mary. But Mary's a girl, Jared's a boy. I treated them different. There wasn't any secret about that. But the idea that you look in is that mothers, they know how to teach children, to guide them in the way they should go. They have better insights into looking, and they choose that. They choose to be a mother in all things, to know that child, to raise him, and to be attached in a way that us men just can't really figure at times. But it works, and works well, because they choose that good part. And then you see the mothers who choose the good part by the training in the home and the teachings of God. You know, I said a moment ago in Ephesians, the 6th chapter, God, in essence, gave me a kick and said, Jack, you got a responsibility to train your children up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. You know, whenever I was not a Christian, I thought, that's not even in my realm. I don't care. Lana had to take the reins on that. Whenever I became a Christian, I realized I have a grave responsibility that I better take hold of. But did that mean that, Lana, okay, I'm not needed anymore? You look in the book of 2 Timothy, and you find here an amazing account of this young man, Timothy. He's going to face trials and struggles that are just unimaginable. You know, whenever you face the struggles in life, some people say, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to handle it. Well, there's a lot of answers that are in there, but I guarantee they're all found in one book. That is the Word of God. Faith is the victory that overcometh the world, 1 John 5 and verse 4. And the children need faith instilled within them. In the book of 2 Timothy, you find in chapter 3 and verse 15, he says, from a child thou hast known the Holy Scriptures that are able to make thee wise unto salvation. Now, the amazing thing is, Timothy's daddy wasn't the spiritual teacher at all. The mother of Timothy was what we call a spiritual widow. Her husband wasn't there spiritually. But you think about what happened. As you read the New Testament, can you imagine life without a Timothy? I can't. But I look at that and I think then, well, if you can't imagine life without a Timothy, can you imagine life without a Lois and Eunice then? Nope. Because they were there. They taught this young boy from a babe. I mean, you know, that is just so amazing to see the young mothers. You know, I look, and here we go back again to teachers. I don't know how to teach Bible class to little kids. You know, I get up and I can fumble through an adult class, but you put me in a little children's class, and I am scared to death. But I look, and I see these ladies who will go in with a baby. I'm not sure at the age they go back in the nursery, months old before they're a year old, and I can walk by and I can hear them in there singing these songs. But I know that also goes on in this woman who's chosen a good part. She may be at home changing a diaper, telling about God, singing the songs. You know, from a babe, it goes on. You get into the other classes, you know, downstairs, and I'll walk by and I'll listen what's going on, and I hear those ladies in there, you know, the ones who taught my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. And I think, oh, what blessing we have. That these have chosen the good part. That they're involved, maybe in their own family, but maybe in my family, your family, in taking that word of God and instilling it in the hearts of these little children. The Apostle Paul spoke about the result of that in 2 Timothy 1 and verse 4 and 5. He said, I'm desiring to see thee being mindful of thy tears, that I may be filled with joy when I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith. No pretense to it. This young man that Paul looked at, he said, I know, you got it. You have this faith that's in you. You know where it started? Which dwelt first in thy grandmother Lois and in thy mother Eunice. And I'm persuaded in you too. I mean, these women who choose the good part of taking that word and teaching it from a young age on up to every child they can influence, whether it's their own, whether it's somebody else's, they've chosen the good part. And what a blessing that is. You know, I've been here 43 years, and I can guarantee, I look out, and I see families. I see those that were little when I came, see those who weren't here when I came. I see the children that they have brought in. I mean, it's just generations that go on. This congregation would not be who she is without the mothers and other women who have chosen the good part of teaching that word, living that word, being that example, imparting that faith. That is amazing, but it's God's plan. But then you look also in that exemplary living as a Christian, as a mother, as a wife, setting that example out. In the book of Matthew, the 5th chapter, the Lord emphasized the power, the purpose of an example. Beginning in verse 14, he says, you are the light of the world, a city that's set on a hill, cannot be hid. Whenever you look in the mirror, you women, you think about that. You think about how you look. And you may have different features and such, but you realize God says, you're the light of the world. You can't be hid, so you shine as you should. Don't hide yourself. Don't hide who you are, who you've chosen to be. He says, neither do you men light a candle and put it on a bushel, but on a candlestick. It giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. You know, you look at so many young in this congregation, and you could ask them a question, where'd you learn that? Where'd you learn to do these things, to act like that? Well, they may not know the answer, but I guarantee you if you watch them, they're watching. They're watching you. Watching you sitting in the pew, watching you as you take the Lord's Supper, watching you as you sing, watching you as you bow your head in prayer, watching you as you reach out and help others, watching you as you teach the Bible class, watching you as you take them home if they're your children. I mean, that example, that light shines bright, and it lights a candle in them. You know, our life is like a candle. What a glorious thing it is to know that there are women who light those candles coming along. I mean, that is a blessing that is just beyond measure. You think about the Apostle Peter in 1 Peter 3, you see this principle that it works in even hard-headed men. Sorry about that. Likewise, you wives, be in subjection to your own husbands. Kind of hard when it hits you between the eyes. Likewise, you wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they may without the word be won by your conversation, that they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear, reverence, respect. And you think about that. How many homes have been molded and shaped by the Word of God that at one time was only preached in the heart of the woman? That's something. So many times people look and they say, you know, in the church you degrade women. I don't know where people get these things. I cannot imagine a congregation that is blessed and growing and strong and faithful without a strong and faithful family base. And I can't imagine that being there without a good and strong and faithful woman. God said in the beginning, it's not good that man should be alone. You realize that only thing he counted as not good was whenever man was here by himself. But women make it good. Why is that? Because he expects them to choose the good part. And when they do, life is grand. The family's good. The church is good. Society is influenced. I mean, all those things are there. So you think about the mothers that are Marys, the godly women, whether they're mothers, whether they're single, whether they're widows, it doesn't matter. God says you need to be thankful for such an one. Those who have chosen the good part. You know, I was going to tell you about my tie. We hadn't got time. Has those on it who are the product of women who chose the good part. So I hope you get a tie like that. But up here at the top, this one, out of this room, could have Patty. It could have Lana. I mean, you think about the influence of women who bring about a line of godly, blessed families. It's because women chose a good part. You know, a sad thing about Mother's Day? One day a year. We're foolish if we look at women and we only extol their virtues, whether mothers or whatever role they fill. We only do that once a year. We ought to look and realize the blessing of the fellowship we have with one another, male, female, that we are children of God and we have an influence on one another. But today, take time to look to the women, your mothers, the other women in the congregation, and thank them for choosing the good part. But you know, that leaves it up to all of us. Have I chosen the good part? What's the best way Actually, it's the only way. John 14 and verse 6, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life. You can't get to the good part without walking with Jesus. And you can't be with Jesus unless you are baptized into Christ. We're children of God by faith in Christ Jesus, for as many as have been baptized into Christ have put on Christ. But once we do that, we make the decision to choose the good part in all of life. In Acts the 2nd chapter, it's called continuing steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine. And it's something we can all choose to do. So today, let's begin by thinking about, of course, the women. But think about yourself. What part are you choosing? Choose the good part. Makes a good life. Makes a good end. But it begins with our humility. Perhaps we've chosen it and turned back. Well, a lot of good, godly women and men, young and old around here, who want to help you to come back. Whatever we can do to help us all have that good part, let's do it as we stand and sing the song of invitation.